Good evening and welcome to A Political Forum. I'm Christine James, your moderator with WATD, and we're doing this in conjunction with Area 58 Cable. Charles Mathewson joining me tonight from WATD as well, and we're focusing on the race for planning board here in Carver. We've got both candidates here in studio with us. We have Ellen Sordillo, you are the incumbent. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you. And we've got Philip Shannon. He's also running for this office. Now, planning board is a 5-year term, and I believe that's one seat. We let people know the format is a little bit different. If you're a radio listener and you listen to our formats, we usually time them pretty tightly, but this is more of a conversation because we have a little bit more time to be able to do that. So we ask the candidates to have opening and closing statements, no longer than 2 minutes, and then we will ask you a series of questions in between to find out where you stand on the issues. And again, it's the town of Carver. I try to tell people just answer the question. I did bring my bell, and if I find that you're repeating yourself or rambling or not getting to the point, then we ring the bell. But I only use that if I have to. So I do, as we say, reserve the right to hurry you along. So let's get started here, and let's start with opening statements. Let's begin with Ellen Sordillo.
Thank you. Hello, Carver residents. If you don't already know me, here's some information about my background. My family has lived here about 46 years. My husband is a Vietnam vet, 100% disabled. It's been a wonderful town for him. He just kind of stays home and does all kinds of gardening around the house. He's had a lot of friends over the years here, wonderful friends, wonderful people. We're now up against so many controversial things that are going on in our town. And I think one of the most important things is that we're able to listen to both sides. We're able to get the information we need, and we have to go by our bylaws, and that's what Carver is based on, is following our bylaws and going along with them. And I realize there's a lot of educated people that are among us that are, coming from both sides. And I think what we need to do is try to get along. I know that's difficult to say, but we're all living this together. And I think that if we can try to work together as a town, as a community, we can get things done without fist fighting and without, name calling. And it's come down to that, and I really hate to see it because that's not what it's about. To be on any kind of a board, we should be very lucky. Some of my background is that I was on the Recreation Committee in Carver when they put the new playground in. I saw some controversy there, but it all ended up well and good. We have a beautiful playground here in the town. I also worked for Dr. Stein, the dentist in town, and I remember a story about a Mr. Cole coming in. He was very elderly, and he looked at me back then, and it was probably 30 years ago, and he said, "Are you a Carver girl?" And I thought to myself, well, what is a Carver girl? And I've come to understand what it is over the years and understand where cranberries come from and how this all came about and the wonderful history of this town. And, we've got the first divided highway in the United States is Savory Lane. And that's a wonderful thing. And, of course, we have Edaville. Edaville Railroad has been around since I can remember. And I came here as a child, and little did I know I would end up living here and being grateful that I have lived here all these years. I also was on the Kiwanis, which was a short-lived community group, and I was in charge of public relations because at the time I worked for MPG Communications. I worked for the Mariner newspapers, so that was a good fit for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I guess I always knew in the back of my mind that I would be civic interested, and that's why I'm on the planning board, because I want things to go smoothly. I want us to make good decisions. I want us to make good decisions for the people in the town and for visitors that come in. We have the King Richard's Fair, which is a very interesting fair indeed, and people come from all over. I feel that I've been very fortunate to serve on so many committees. I was also on, besides the recreation, I was on housing, which I am on again. So I am grateful for that as well, because I believe in housing and what it does to take care of people in the community that aren't as fortunate as some of the other people, and they need a great place to live too. And I know personally, from friends and relatives that have actually lived in that system, that it's a terrific place. And I am just so proud to be of this town. And the other day, I saved cranberries from the season and I freeze them. And I went to make some of my own cranberry sauce, and I looked at the bag, and it was from California, and I almost threw it out because I thought, this is like cheating on my town. So I just really feel that this is my home. It has been my home for so many years, and I just want to see things run smoothly in this town. We shouldn't have such adverse reactions to things that are going to better the town in so many ways, whether it's bringing down our tax dollars or beneficial to the children in the town. I just want to see this be a peaceful community as it was when I came here, and I believe the population was a little over 3,000 people at the time, and now look at it, it's close to 12,000. And, that's pretty much all I need to say right now, but I'm, open to anybody giving me a call or asking me what my viewpoints are. And I'll try to be as honest as I can, because that's one thing you'll find about me, is that I'm 100% honest, and what you see is what you get.
Thank you very much. That was the opening statement from Ellen Sordillo. Let's go to Philip Shannon.
First of all, I just want to say thank you for having us and having us here tonight. My name's Phil Shannon, and when I moved to Carver 19 years ago with my family, I was attracted to the good schools, the rural character, and abundant open space with wooded areas. Now I am running for the planning board to help preserve some of the things that brought us here. I don't want to see Carver become the next Plymouth, Weymouth, or even Kingston, where giant buildings are going up all over the place. Last year, I noticed that 11 open positions went unopposed at the annual town election, and the only competitive races were for the select board and the school board. That's not the type of ballot that encourages people to get out to vote, in my opinion. When I saw this, I decided that I should try to get my name on the ballot this year to try and promote more competition and encourage more people to get out and vote. That's one of the reasons that I'm on the ballot this year for both the Planning Board and the North Carver Water Commissioner positions. I'm interested in the issues that the boards deal with, and not everybody can say that. I subscribe to Area 58 YouTube channel, and every time that I watch or attend a board meeting, I always learn something new. In my career, I've been working in the IT industry for decades, and some of the skills that I've learned there should help me if I am fortunate enough to win. For example, 20 years ago, I became a Six Sigma specialist, and I work with industry standards like ISO 9000 and government regulations like Sarbanes-Oxley. Everything has a paper trail, everything gets audited sooner or later, and proper planning is the most important part of all projects. For most of my career, I was commuting to Boston, but now I work remotely and have more time available, which has convinced me that now is a good time to get my name on the ballot and try to get elected. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Philip Shannon, opening statement. Questions for the candidates, Charles Mathewson.
Well, let's get started with some issues, and we can loosen things up a little later. On the planning board, you don't have direct contact as the earth removal committee does. But can you define for me the difference between sand and gravel mining and sand and gravel removal for incidental purposes? Let's start with Phil.
Sure. I think for the cranberry industry, all cranberry bogs require sand for the regular maintenance and growing of the cranberries.
If we ever get a freeze and they can get the sanders out on the frozen bogs.
Yeah. I see that all the time. And I think like one of the controversial issues that the town's facing now is that there's a lot of really large sand mining type operations that are a lot larger than you would expect to see with the cranberry bog. And so, from what I understand, there's a group that's been researching this and trying to look into all the different permits. And it seems like over the years, the permit process or the records retention hasn't really been great for the earth removal committee. And there's like, from what I understand, there's a lot of records missing. So I think there is a big important issue here to distinguish between what they call sand mining, and that's like really large sand mining, like you'd see off of Route 44 and on Kingston Plymouth area there, like right next to the highway there. You look at that, and that's like a large sand mining operation that seems like it would require a different permit than something that you need for a cranberry bog. It's like a whole different industry almost, So I think it's important that distinguish where, farms for cranberries, they definitely need a lot of sand, and they should have as much as they need. And then there's another issue where there could be situations in town where there's sand mining going on where like millions of dollars worth of sand is just being sold out to go somewhere else, and that really has nothing to do with cranberry bogs, I think.
Ellen, how do you distinguish between mining and incidental
I think
uses?
Phil did a great job describing both of that. I don't think I could do any better. But I do understand that, especially in the cranberry business, they need certain types of sand, and we're fortunate to have them here. We had a lot of iron ore originally, which, really put Carver on the map. And as a woman, I had to learn all about these different sands, and I who'd ever think that was interesting, but it is. And how different things grow better in different types of sand. And I don't think I could have answered the question any better than Mr. Shannon did just now. He sort of gave me a little bit of an education on that, so thank you, Phil.
Okay, to follow up, you mentioned some of the controversy in town, and that has to do with just the subject of sand mining. How would you try to resolve that?
That's a good question. I think that, first of all, we need to, once again, bring people together and find out what the options are, find out what the laws are pertaining to those options, and follow them. And if there aren't laws, then we need to start making different laws and bylaws that will apply to that specific subject. And I don't think, like Phil said, I think there needs to be more done, that's not great English, but we need to do more to really respect what's going on with our sand, what's going on with the mall, how much of that sand is required in this town, and if we have excess, what should be done with it to benefit the town of Carver.
Phil, let's say you're at a planning board meeting and you're on the other side of the table. How would you try to resolve these differences?
The differences with the sand mining?
People who come before you and say we need the sand, and the bylaw says that it's okay if it's incidental to building or creating a bog, and the people who say no, we're punching holes in the aquifer. How do you resolve that?
Well, I think it needs to be resolved. The big thing that needs to be resolved is that I think for the most part, everybody, I think a lot of people, the majority in town, would agree that we shouldn't do anything that's going to hurt the cranberry farmers. So I think it's important that whatever they need, I don't know how we determine exactly whatever they need, but that needs to be determined, that they need to be allowed to have as much of their own sand that they need for their own purposes for their farming. But it's also important that there needs to be something in place that if there's a situation where someone has so much sand that they can sell it and make millions of dollars, that there should be a different type of permit for that purpose, where that's fine, that's their sand and they should be allowed to sell it, but there should be some sort of sales tax or something going to the town if that's what's going on.
Should we move on to the other issue?
Go for it.
Okay. Let's talk about Cranberry Point. Should the town have a massive solar battery or not? Ellen?
I went for a site walk because I wanted to learn more about this subject. I've heard pros and cons, and I understand why they want to put it where they've chosen because of the way the I forget what you call them, but the way I'm sorry, I'm at a loss for words, which never happens to me. But that area was chosen, and we're not going to benefit by it as far as Carver, but other towns, surrounding towns, are going to benefit by it. What will benefit is the tax dollars, which are going up consistently, and we need to find ways to, to make those tax dollars less than what is happening right now. I mean, the level, and it's just out of sight. And I really believe that if the fire department has approved this, that's something that we should all take into consideration, that if, God forbid, there was something going off, they would be able to attend to it and take care of it. It's going to be in special containers. And it's going in an area that nobody can really see, and you can't really hear anything. And I think there's two sides to every story. And I really think that this has become such a large issue that the town is just separated. And I don't think that's the way it should be. I think we need to think of benefits for the town as well. And right now, I'm leaning towards thinking that this is what's best for Carver, because we are going to benefit by the tax dollars, and that's something we need. We don't have a lot of businesses in Carver, and I'd like to entice more businesses to come this way. And the Attorney General has basically already approved this. So to fight over it is, to me, a waste of time. It's going to come whether the people want it or not. So we might as well accept it and realize that it's safe. Once again, the fire department has, made sure that they can handle it, and NSTAR is cooperative, and Tesla is one of the best companies to do this. So I have confidence that this will be a positive thing for the town of Carver.
Bill, are you in favor of the solar battery or not?
No, I agree with most of what she says, though. But I have concerns with the location that it's going in because of safety issues, because it's close to a neighborhood. And I mean, I just look at it this way. If you want to look at that neighborhood, it's safer without a battery storage plant, so we're supposed to look after the safety. But that said, I don't think there's a lot that the planning board could have done to, prevent this project. Although I did go to the planning board meeting in February, and they allowed public comment, and I asked them if they would suggest that, they suggest to the Board of Selectmen that the town should look into the right of first refusal because this property had to go from 61A and convert to a different use. And when that happened,
61A being agricultural
Yeah.
use.
so when that happens, they had to apply for a different use so that this can go in that location. And when that happens, the town had an opportunity for a right of first refusal. And the first thing you need to do is get an appraisal on what that area would be worth. But the town never even got an appraisal, and they never even had a public forum at the Board of Selectmen meeting. So I don't know. I mean, I definitely have concerns about the safety. I don't think it's the right location, but as she was saying, the Attorney General has a high priority to have battery storage, especially with all the offshore wind that's going in off of the Cape. That's why they need the battery storage in this area in the southeastern Mass. So, and this location is like perfect for it. So, I'm definitely not a fan of it going in that location, but I'm just not sure if there's much that the planning board can do about that.
Let me just do a quick follow-up with that. Would you support this if this were in another location in Carver? And is there an area in Carver that you think it should be in instead?
Well, yes, I think that I'd want to put it in a place that's, at least like a mile or more from the nearest homes and schools and businesses. But they're saying that it has to go there because that's one of the largest substations in Massachusetts. I think they said it's the third largest, and putting it right there is easier to tie in. But my question for that would be, like, I know it would cost more to put it further away from houses, but maybe it would be worth it if you could tie it in from, maybe half mile away or a mile or two away that's not surrounded by any houses or schools or anything like that. It would cost them more, but it would be a lot more safer, I think.
Okay. Ellen, do you think would you support it if it were in another location? Do you think it would be a better?
I think that it was picked, that specific location was picked because of the high tension wires. That's what I was trying to say before. And I went down and I did do the site walk. And once again, especially in the summer, it will be blocked off by different foliage that comes on the trees. And it will be very safe. There will be, they're going to have, they were talking about barbed wire, but I think that didn't work out. But it will be very safe so that, kids won't get hurt and nobody will be able to get into it. And I think it's very secure there. I think if anything were to go wrong, that the fire department would be aware of it and it would be taken care of properly, because they had to be trained specially too to take care of that. And it's that specific location that is why it was chosen.
Now, you also mentioned a little earlier about tax revenue to the town. Do you have an approximate idea about how much money you're talking about?
I don't. That really hasn't come up, so I can't tell you specifically, but I know it's a great deal.
Is it $100,000 or half a million?
I don't want to answer that because I don't want to answer it incorrectly.
Okay.
Do you have any idea?
No, but I remember you did ask that at one of the meetings and they didn't really have a
Yeah,
number
so
for
they really didn't know either,
Okay. Charles?
On a completely separate issue, let's talk about housing. Ellen, you said you're on the housing committee, and there's a new law, Chapter 40A, Section 3A, referred to as the MBTA Communities Act, even though it has nothing to do with transportation. And Carver is an adjacent community. Do you think Carver can absorb the number of multifamily units that it would have to permit by right? Phil?
No, I think we'd have to have like specific areas in town where it would be appropriate, and I don't think there's enough areas in town to fit that many. I think it'd be like over 400 units or something. So I mean, I guess it might be possible, but I think first you have to pick some limited areas in town where something like that would be appropriate, because there's already been one project pitched, I think, to the Board of Selectmen where they wanted to put 360 units in Edaville Railroad area, and I think that's like the totally inappropriate area. It's a residential agricultural for like a giant multi-unit, 300-unit multi-buildings, apartment complex or something like that. So I just think that type of project needs to go in, limited areas that can, and I don't know if we have, enough areas to get up to the right numbers. I know there's been talk in town where they've talked about how, there's some mobile home areas in town, and they're not considered affordable, but I don't know if there's an opportunity to try and change that rule or not, but that might help if we could get some of those areas considered.
3A isn't affordable either. It's whatever the market will bear. Ellen, how do you feel about?
Well, the thing that I think about are, in that situation, usually you can get families with children, and I don't think we have the schools to support that amount of children. And, that's what is in the back of my mind every time I think about it. I understand that, we need more, and the times are changing, and it's very difficult to even rent a house. But being that, with all the children that are going to be coming, we're just not going to be able to progress in the right direction as far as the children go in the school systems.
If Carver does not adopt this law, there are some penalties, and the amount of money that you can apply for state grants. So what do you do, Ellen?
That's a really deep question. you'd have to weigh things out and see, what the cost would be to expand the school system, to hire more teachers. We just built the school. So how much will our taxes go up from that? So it's going to be difficult on every citizen in this town if we go in that direction. And I don't know what those penalties are. I didn't even realize there were some, but now
It's
you
primarily mass grants.
and that
is
can
it?
be problematic.
Yeah.
Because we do count on mass grants for a lot of things here. So that's really a tough question right there. I mean, people need a place to live, but will Carver be that place? Will we offer enough to these new families that come into town looking for things to do for the kids after school and whatever? I mean, it's just, I just don't think that that's the correct answer to have that many, housing here, because I don't think the town can handle it. Not right now, maybe in the future, but.
Phil, how would you fight this?
Well, I just don't think it's fair because, look at like Kingston and Plymouth. They have, they're in this MBTA plan, and they have actual train stations, and Kingston has a mall, and right there next to the train stations, that's where they're putting big apartment buildings up, and Carver doesn't really have anything like that. But I think we should try and see if there's any areas in town that we could target something like that. And the only place that I can think of the area is the urban renewal district in North Carver, but I'm not sure. I mean, that's one idea that I have, but I'm not sure if it would, tick all the boxes that would be required for that.
4,000 units in Plymouth
Oh, 4,000, wow.
would be required. Yeah. So by a factor of 10, you're doing better by hiding in Carver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's why those buildings are going up all over the place in Plymouth, yeah.
Yeah.
And what is affordable? What is affordable to us? What is affordable to people?
Yeah.
It's gotten out of hand.
Yeah, because they consider us in the same district as Boston and Quincy as far as affordable.
Well, it's not affordable.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
It plain isn't. Right.
Speaking of the Edaville project, about the project that's proposed for that, the owner of the park detailed initial plans for, I believe it was 336 units. 182 would be one bedroom and 119 would be two bedroom. 25% of the units would be affordable. And the property, as you probably know, connects to more than 600 acres of open space. So they'd like to add conservation restriction and use the area for hiking, cycling, and kayaking. What are your thoughts on this project?
I love all those things that you just said, and I think that we've got a lot of that in this town, and that's what makes it so special. I understand we need to have more housing, but once again, I just keep thinking, well, what is affordable? What is the answer to that? Has anyone ever said what they think affordable is? You can't even rent an apartment for less than $2,000. So let them come up with that figure and what they think is affordable. And then maybe we can talk about things and try to figure out, some kind of happy medium between the two. I understand that we need more housing in Carver, but is that the right approach? Is that exactly what we need? I don't know. I think that's something for the higher power to kind of figure out, because I think that's going from one type of area and changing it into a totally other type of area. And I don't think we're ready for that yet in this town.
Phil Shannon, what do you think about this whole proposal for the Edaville property?
I'm not a big fan of that one. And I remember when this was in front of the select board, they asked the police department about it, and I'm pretty sure that they said that they wouldn't be ready. Oh, that was the police department. The equipment they have now wouldn't be ready for like a 3-story apartment building like that. And with so many apartment buildings in such a small area, that the equipment that we have now would not be ready for it. And the emergency department also said that they need to have more staff, and the police will probably be the same, and the schools. So there's so many different things that a project that large would affect. I think the town would be much better off with smaller projects. Like right in where I live, there's thing called Patriot Pines. It's been in front of the planning board multiple times. It's a smaller neighborhood that's going in, and it has, I think, 6 or 8 affordable units. And I think, I don't know, I know we couldn't do that like 10 times in our area, but I think smaller projects like that would be a lot better than a 368 project in a residential agricultural area.
Just wanted to give you both a quick follow-up question. How would you describe the job as a member of the planning board? Is it just to look at the bylaws and rule or make recommendations, or is it to be an advocate or an activist on behalf of any kind of a project? Ellen.
I don't think that we should be an advocate for any project. I think we need to be able to listen and not. This was the hardest for me getting into it initially, is your own personal opinion really doesn't matter. What matters is it following the bylaws? That is, they were enacted so that it would be safe to live here, that, that we would not bother the preservation areas, that we would keep this as a quaint place, and I think the bylaws, make sure that people are safe. And don't forget, we have an on-call fire department. We don't have a regular fire department, although I have to say, we had a personal fire in my house, and they were magnificent. They are outstanding. But, I don't really know the difference, because I think our on-call fire department is so good that it should be a regular fire department. But I just think that you have to follow the bylaws. Rules are made to follow for good reason, whether it be protecting the people of the town or making sure that, wildlife is safe. These rules were made for good reason, and it's something that if you choose to be on any board, you have to realize that. You have to take this into consideration, because that's what it's all about. And, we're learning new things all the time, and, we're able to make new bylaws, and, we're coming up to, town meeting, and I find that really exciting to listen to everybody's opinions. And hopefully, it will remain calm, even though there are some things that really get people fired up. But they're passionate about it. But you have to remember to follow the rules. And that's probably the most important thing about being on the planning board, is that those rules weren't made to be broken. They were made to adhere to for the safety and the good of all in Carver.
Okay. What about your thoughts on that, Phil? What do you think your role is as a member of the planning board in Carver?
I agree with most of what she said. And I think the most important thing is to go by the town bylaws and the state laws. And for me, if I was going in there as a newcomer, I'd really be heavily dependent on the town council and the town planner for guidance. But I also think it's important to be available for all the residents to share their concerns with you, so that you can kind of go there on their behalf and try and ask questions for the people that have concerns. But it's also important that it's all about the being a representative for the safety, the interests, and the welfare for all the residents of Carver, but I don't think you should be an activist. You have to stay within the bylaws and the state laws, and where possible, work to improve the town bylaws.
Charles, another question?
I live in Plymouth, near the beach. Not on the beach, but close enough that after a storm, I can hear the surf in my bedroom. You live in Carver, there's no surf. You could live in Wareham and go sailing, but you live in Carver. There's no bay. What is it about Carver that makes you stay here? What do you love about Carver? Phil Shannon.
Sure. Well, I live in an area called Vaughan Estates, and right in my backyard, there's a trail that goes up by a pond, and it opens up into cranberry bogs. And so I'd say after I moved here, it took me like 6 months before I realized there was trail and what was out there. And then we started taking our dogs out there for walks, and we kind of got to know the people who work for the cranberry bog. And it's actually owned by 80 Makepeace. So we know the guy who manages the bog, and he has a dog too, and our dogs became friends. So, and it's just a really beautiful area, and it's great. They've always been great neighbors, and walking trails, and you know, in the winter it's beautiful scenes with all the snow, and you can go skating on the ponds and stuff. So, those are some of the things that I love about Carver right there, and like right in my neighborhood.
What do you love about Carver, Ellen?
The first thing I love is that at about 5:15 a.m. I hear all the birds. And I find that the most beautiful sound to wake up to in the world. You know, I mean, I would love to be by the ocean. You know what? I can go on vacation and listen to the ocean anytime I want. But Carver has the most amazing people here. I know many people that own bogs, and you know, the family history that is behind all this, and the generations of families that came here from Finland, from Cape Verde, from other countries is amazing. And we have made so many wonderful friends over the years. And you talk about the salt of the earth, that's Carver. That's the way I look at it. You can't do any better than here. It's a beautiful place to look at, especially in the fall. But in the summer, we have beautiful ponds. And it's just, I don't know, it's made us live here all those years. You know, we could have moved many times, and we chose to stay here. And now we're like the oldest family on the street, which is fine. You know, we live in a big neighborhood, so I love when people are walking around with their young children and their kids, and you can look at them and know that they're at peace too here, because there's something about Carver that you just feel at peace. You know, I've worked in Boston, I've worked on the outskirts, and it's a beautiful place to come home to. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, let's go to closing statements then. We've been talking with the candidates here for planning board, and I believe we started with Ellen, so we'll start this time with Phil.
Sure.
Excuse me.
If elected, I will support and honor all town bylaws and state laws. I will show up prepared and will always try to be the best representative for the safety, interests, and welfare for all residents of Carver. My family and I love living here, and I am ready to join the planning board or the North Carver Water District Commission and start working hard for the good people of Carver. And I'd also like to say, if I do not win, then Ellen, you have my full support
Well, thank you, Phil.
on the planning board.
Thank you very
You're
much.
doing a great job.
Ellen, your
Closing
closing
statement.
statement.
Well, I think that I've already said everything I really need to say, and I'm grateful that we had this talk and that I got to know Phil better. You know, by nature, I'm not a competitive person, but I think that I'm very fair, and I want to know all the facts before I make a decision, and not make it half-heartedly or because I like it. I want to make sure that the majority of the people are satisfied with my decision. And if they have questions, please approach me or anyone from the planning board, because it's our pleasure to serve Carver. And we are here for the people of the town. And Phil, I got to meet you today, and I have a lot of respect for you.
Okay.
And I am just not a competitive person whatsoever. So this is very difficult for me. But whatever happens, you know, I'm going to go along and be happy. You know, I hope you vote for me, but, you know, if it doesn't work out like that, Mr. Shannon will do a good job.
Thank you.
You've been watching and listening to a political forum by WATD in association with Area 58 Cable. And as Christine always says at the end of a forum, get out and vote on the 22nd. If you don't vote, you don't have a voice. Thank you.